Welcome to the Shikama Live Show with your host, Shikama. Guys, I just wanted to get this out quickly. So this is a warning video. There are radiation pollutants in the drinking systems. Now, it's initially called for a warning for California and the southwestern states, then the western states, Utah and on up. And then now I, in doing a little bit more research, have found out that it's all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all sorts of places. So you are not safe with your drinking water. This means that you're going to have an elevated incidence of cancers and what have you. Terms that I don't know. I'm looking into this right now. I wanted to get this warning out first so that you can be aware of it immediately and that you can do your own research and do whatever to try and mitigate, means lessen, any potential danger to you and your family. Of course, I care about you and your family first. Now, the EPA, from my perspective, has dropped the ball on this. When actual grassroots sort of nature groups have brought it to the attention of the EPA has tried to explain it away. I do not have a very good opinion of the EPA, and I believe that they are on the take, just like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the banking system. All of those agencies seem to be on the take, and they're not actually doing like the one for consumer affairs that supposedly you couldn't, or watching out for you and your credit cards and the percentage rates that they can charge. They had a law that said you could not charge usury rates, but the credit card companies got around that by offering it to people outside of the states, and so it didn't apply to them. And the Consumer Affairs never did anything about that. And in fact, in 2008, when they were having the hearings, at no point did they even concede that that was usury or that it shouldn't be. And supposedly they wrote in legislation that was to protect everybody, when in fact it did absolutely nothing. So now back to this contamination. Excessive uranium contamination in major U.S. aquifers puts 2 million Americans at risk of radiation damage. Of course, 2 million is a very tiny segment of the population, and I believe that the number that they're trying to quote, although it seems high to the average person, is much less of a scare than it actually should be. It's probably 100 million to maybe even 200 million people are at risk, because they're trying to mitigate you panicking and going out and buying some sort of things. Now, let's read this report. An excessive amount of pollutants were discovered to plague aquifers in California and the Great Plains, according to an analysis conducted by the U.S. Geological Survey. An estimated 2 million Americans throughout the West Coast and Midwest live above aquifers that are contaminated by natural uranium linked to human contributed nitrate. The researchers collected an estimated 275,000 groundwater samples in the High Plains and Central Valley aquifers. Now, before I read on to this malarkey, I already did some research when this topic was brought up to me, and they said that Pittsburgh alone was already contaminated, and that they said that the water treatment plants were unable to treat for uranium as a regular doing business treatment for the water. Now, I have some anecdotal treatment, and that there is a company that puts out industrial treatments. Apparently, water treatment plants don't include industrial. I'm guessing, right? That the industrial, they create a product to remove radiation contaminants for industrial companies. I'm guessing that is supposed to be for water treatment plants, but maybe it's something more different. Maybe it's, companies who produce their own water for their employees or whatever. But anyway, they created a consumer level water treatment thing to remove radiation. Now, here's the deal. They have a standing agreement that once your filter has been contaminated or to such a degree that you take your filter, pass it in, and then you get your new filter or whatever, right? So anyway, there was a lady who had bought the consumer level one, and so she turned in her filter, and the EPA was trying to knock on her door and trying to arrest her, saying that she was was creating nuclear bombs in her house. And come to find out, she said, no, this is the water system that comes into our house. And it's the filter is showing you what's in the water treatment coming from the water treatment plant. It was to such a degree that it was on par with nuclear waste from nuclear plants, And then, of course, the EPA did nothing after that, of course. They just... but then they started looking, that company that created the filter started looking and found out that all of the people sending in the filters or whatever to wherever I don't think the filter went back to the company. I think it went to the water treatment plant or something like it went to somewhere else where they reported to these agencies. I have a grassroots company, grassroots group in Greene County who were taking samples from their stream, and they were saying that they had 60 times the radiation that is considered, I guess, safe. 60 times. So, of course, then they said not only the water, but the fish, wildlife, anything that you get from the area, also it would be contaminated, and you are not safe to, but then that means that the entire population is not safe. Because a lot of farmers or a lot of producers of meats and what have you, and that includes fish. The whole fishing industry is just in an abysmal state due to pollution and contamination and what have you. And the EPA does absolutely not. The EPA, as far as I'm concerned, only pesters citizens. They do not actually go after these big, huge companies. And we have on record the EPA actually causing pollution. You have the Native American river that they polluted, and the EPA say, oh, we're not going to do anything. It wasn't our fault, blah, blah, blah. We investigated. No, you polluted it. You did that. The EPA doesn't go after the big giant corporations that do all of the pollutants. So now we have a fish and wildlife sort of thing that produces food for the nation that is constantly contaminated, and the EPA does absolutely nothing. I think the EPA should be abolished. Only have the regular local groups who actually do something, who actually go out to take samples and bring this to the attention. And then your local governor or mayor can then go after the company with some actual teeth to it. The federal government isn't going to do anything because they're on the take anyway, right? Now, hopefully, the local group is not going to be on the take, and that they're going to, you usually have these hippies who have these bleeding hearts, and thank God for them in that sort of instance that they do, that they're going to make a stink about it. Now, this particular local company in Greene County brought this to the attention of the EPA, and I believe the EPA did absolutely nothing. The federal government isn't going to do anything. And then, of course, all of the population says, you have to take care of yourself. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to look into it further, but I'm going to ask you to look into any sort of filtration. I would sample. If you go to a local supermarket and you buy fish regularly, they're going to get the fish from the same person all the time. So I want you to then have a test at least a fish occasionally. I mean, we're talking about your life. We're talking about your children. We're talking about your family, your husband, wife, what have you. Take a sample from a fish and have it tested. Yes, you have to do the FDA is not going to do anything for you. The EPA is not going to do anything for you. My opinion, they're not going to do anything for you. And if they do test it, they're going to hide the results. That's just my experience. And I've just been watching a whole bunch of evidence saying so. Action News investigator has learned high levels of radiation up to 60 times higher than the maximum allowed in drinking water have been found in a stream that feeds into a water treatment plant. So the stream goes into the water treatment plant. Now, how are you going to have a headline that talks about 2 million people affected when a radiated stream goes into the water treatment plant? And the water treatment plant said that they have no way on their regular operation of actually removing any of the contaminants. Can't be done. And it has to be more than 2 million people. And the EPA, when asked point blank, would you drink this water? They said, no, we would not. Would you eat the fish? No, we would not. Would you eat the wildlife? No, we would not. Just point blank, would you consume this? No, we would not. The person who took the sample says he would not touch it with his hands. He has a long pole to take it and then put the samples into something else. He says, I won't touch. I won't be around. You see that I'm covered from head to toe. He had his whole little get up looking like something from the movie Thor, when they found his hammer. Not that I like that movie at all. It's just a bunch of white people doing white people stuff. Ken DeFula of the Isaac Walton League Conservation Group has been taking samples from 10 Mile Creek for years, frequently finding high levels of total dissolved solids. Quote, I wouldn't touch it. As you can see, I try to keep my hands off of it at all times. I can because I don't know what's in this water. DeFula said. That's Ken DeFula. To find out exactly what is in the water, he pressed the State Department of Environmental Protection to do comprehensive testing. The results showed levels of radium-226 and radium-228 totaling 327 picocuries per liter at one location and 301 picocuries per liter of radium-226 at another location. In plain English, that means both samples had 60 times the EPA drinking water standard of 5 picocuries per liter. Quote, there's something in here that's not supposed to be here, DeFala said. 10 Mile Creek feeds into the Mon River near Fredericktown. Less than a mile downriver is a water treatment plant, and that is a major concern for regulators and area residents. John Stolz, a biologist in Duquesne University, says radium can be hazardous. I love how they always underplay what they're actually trying to report on. It's of concern. I'm here to tell you, you should be very concerned. You should be out of your mind with rage and fear that this is. So people are wondering, where's all this cancer coming from? Where's all this cancer? We have an environment, an EPA on the take. We have an FDA on the take. Monsanto, you see that Monsanto is being dismantled overseas, right? They have gone full out and completely banning any Monsanto seeds, any food, anything from Monsanto. They are dismantling it overseas, and we are doing nothing here in the United States. Nothing. And And it's not just Monsanto. Monsanto is the only popular company now. There are tens of companies just like Monsanto. Come to find out, the insecticide that they promote doesn't even work. My roommate's father bought it here, and I was like, what are you doing? The insecticide, the weed killer, all of that stuff doesn't work at all. At all. My grandmother had a much more effective thing, and I tried that. And they said that was illegal to use that process here in Nevada. Now, I want to leave you with, after this video, I want you to investigate the best filtration system for drinking water in your home. Drinking, bathing, what have you. Any water coming into your house, I want you to investigate a proper filtration system. Now, if you're a poor person, you live in an apartment or something like that, you can't do anything. You're just at the whim of the apartment complex, and no matter how much you complain, they're not going to do anything. Point blank. As a business person, they're not going to do anything because they could care less. Maybe if you're in one of those $3,000 a month apartment places, I don't know if that's expensive where you are, but here that's expensive. Maybe they would listen to you because it would be probably very cheap for them to put on an industrial sized filtration system and then have everybody be at ease in the entire complex. But for you regular middle class and upper class homeowners, I want you to go investigate this company. I do not have the company's name, and I don't want to really endorse anybody anyway because nobody's paying me. But go and investigate this on your own. Thank you for watching the Shikamalai Show.